Invisible in the spotlight. My name is Caitlin. I'm 23 years old, and I never thought I'd wake up on the morning of my sister's wedding feeling so hollow. The day before had passed in a blur, laughter echoing through the house, flowers arriving in bursts of color, and my mother's proud smile etched on her face like it had been painted there just for Emma. Not for me. Never for me. Let me take you back, because you'll never understand why that day felt so quietly unbearable unless you understand how we got here. I grew up in a neatly tucked suburb outside Chicago. Our house was picture-perfect, manicured lawn, a white picket fence, family dinners, summer vacations to Florida. My dad, Scott, was a financial advisor. My mom, Diane, ran a successful interior design business. My sister, Emma, was their shining star. And me? I tried. God knows I tried. While Emma dazzled effortlessly, praised for her poise, her grace, her beauty, I carved out a different path. I worked harder than anyone else I knew. I graduated college with honors, landed a great job in marketing, and built a life I was proud of. But none of that seemed to matter to them. I remember winning a poetry contest in high school. I came home beaming, my certificate in hand. My dad barely looked up from his laptop. "That's nice," he muttered. Then he turned to Emma. "Did you get accepted into that summer leadership program yet?" Just like that, my joy vanished into the wallpaper. It was always like that. No matter what I achieved, it was as if I was whispering into a void. My mother once said, after I landed my first job, "Well, you've always had a pretty face." I'm sure that helped. As if my hard work didn't matter. As if I was only worth what I looked like. Emma wasn't cruel. Not exactly. But she played her part. If I ever got a moment in the spotlight, she'd pull it back, subtly, sometimes not. I remember how she ruined my prom dress the night before the dance. She cried afterward, said she didn't mean to, that sisters fight sometimes. So I forgave her. Because that's what I was taught, keep the peace. Be understanding. When Emma met Jackson, everything intensified. He was from old money, had a high-powered job, checked every box my parents ever dreamed of. The golden couple. They got engaged after just 6 months, and suddenly the wedding became the only thing that mattered. Every conversation, every family gathering, all of it revolved around Emma and Jackson. I tried to be supportive. I helped with decorations, addressed invitations, even designed the thank you cards. I told myself this was my chance to reconnect, to build a bridge between us. But every effort I made seemed to be twisted into something else. "You're just trying to outshine me," Emma snapped when she saw the custom cards I had designed. "You know you're better at this stuff." I didn't respond. What could I say? Still, when she asked me to be a bridesmaid, I accepted. Maybe I thought this would be a turning point. Maybe we'd laugh like sisters again. I should have known better. At the engagement party, I wore a simple black dress, kept my makeup light, and stayed in the background, just like they wanted. In the kitchen, I overheard my mother whispering to a family friend, "Caitlin's trying too hard to stand out. Maybe she should wear something less flattering for the wedding. Or maybe give a reading so she's not in too many photos." It stung. I swallowed it down. At the bridal shower, Jackson's mother, a kind woman, far removed from the tension in our family, complimented my arrangements. "You have such a gift for this," she said softly. "Everything looks beautiful." I smiled, grateful for the moment. Later, I found Emma crying in the bathroom. "You couldn't help yourself, could you?" she said. "You had to be noticed." "Emma," I said gently, "I was just trying to make your day special." "Well, stop trying." The night before the wedding, during the rehearsal dinner, Jackson's brother, Mark, struck up a quiet conversation with me. He said something simple, that Emma and I were both beautiful, but in different ways. "You have this quiet warmth," he said. "It's rare." I smiled politely. It was a harmless compliment. But Emma noticed. She stormed out of the room. I found her crying again, this time trembling with rage. "Mark couldn't stop looking at you," she hissed. "His whole family probably thinks he picked the wrong sister." "That's not true," I said, stunned. "Mark was just being kind." "Then why did his mom ask if we were both models?" I spent the next hour helping her calm down, redoing her makeup, assuring her that she was the most beautiful bride the world had ever seen. I meant it too. I wanted her to feel special. I wanted her to be happy. But somewhere deep down, I also wished anyone would ask how I was doing. On the day of the wedding, I woke up early. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of excitement from downstairs. My role was clear: show up, smile, stand still. And so I did. I wore the dress Emma picked for me, pulled my hair into a quiet bun, and said all the right things. I smiled in photos, clapped when they kissed, and toasted to their future. No one noticed the storm I carried inside. No one asked. Later that night, as the celebration faded and the guests began to leave, I slipped outside alone. The air was cool. A faint breeze rustled the trees. I let myself cry. Not because I was jealous. Not because I wanted to be the bride. But because I had spent my whole life shrinking myself for a family that never really saw me. And I was so tired. Tired of proving, pleasing, pretending. That night, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would no longer dim my light for others to shine. Not out of bitterness, but because I finally understood something I should have known all along. I deserved to be seen too, the night before Emma's wedding. To reconnect with Emma, I stood outside her childhood bedroom, a steaming mug of her favorite chamomile tea trembling slightly in my hand. My heart was pounding. I knocked gently. "Can we talk?" I asked, voice soft. Surprisingly, she opened the door and let me in. We sat side by side on her bed, just like we used to when we were younger, when things were simpler, before distance and resentment began to quietly grow between us. For the briefest moment, her hard exterior softened. I saw it in her eyes, not jealousy, but fear. "I'm nervous about tomorrow," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "What if I'm not good enough for Jackson?" "Emma," I said sincerely, looking straight at her, "he adores you. Anyone can see that. You're going to be a beautiful bride. And your life together will be full of love and joy." And for that fleeting moment, we connected like real sisters. Before I left the room, she reached out and hugged me. "Thanks, Caitlin," she said. "I'm really glad you'll be there tomorrow." That night, I went to bed with hope in my chest. Maybe this wedding would mark a turning point in our relationship. Maybe once she was married, her insecurities about me would finally fade. I fell asleep making quiet promises to myself, to keep supporting her, to continue being the bigger person, and to never give up on the bond we once shared. But while I dreamed of reconciliation, something unthinkable was already unfolding. Betrayal in the dark. A strange sensation brushed across my face, waking me. I reached up to move it away, and something soft dropped onto my hand. I opened my eyes. A long strand of blonde hair was lying across my palm, my hair. Startled, I sat up quickly, and more hair fell from my shoulders in uneven clumps. That's when I saw her. My mother was standing at the foot of my bed, scissors in hand, surrounded by a pile of golden strands. I reached up, heart racing. My fingers grazed patches of hair cut so close to the scalp I could feel bare skin. My voice came out in a cracked whisper. "Mom, what did you do?" She didn't flinch. "What needed to be done," she said, her tone eerily calm. "Emma deserves to shine on her wedding day." I stumbled out of bed and ran to the mirror, barely able to comprehend what I was seeing. My reflection, my face, looked like a stranger's. The long waves I'd cared for since childhood were gone, replaced by uneven tufts, jagged patches, and near-bald spots. Tears welled up instantly. "Why would you do this?" I cried, my voice shaking with devastation. My father appeared in the doorway. His expression was emotionless. "Now maybe people will pity you instead of envy you," he said coldly. "Emma deserves the attention tomorrow. Not you." I was speechless. Numb. These were the people who were supposed to love me, protect me. And they had attacked me in my sleep, not out of rage, but out of cold, calculated preference for my sister's happiness. Locked away. I fled to the bathroom and locked the door. My sobs echoed off the cold tiles as I slid down against the door, clutching my knees. Under the harsh light, the damage was even worse. My scalp showed through uneven chunks. There were nicks, actual cuts on my skin. This wasn't just a terrible haircut. It was punishment. Frantic, I searched for my phone to call someone, anyone, but it was gone. I pounded on the door. "Where's my phone?" My mother's voice answered calmly from the hallway. "It's safe. You won't be calling anyone. Not until after the wedding." "What?" "You cut off my hair in my sleep." "You." "It will grow back," she said with a sigh. "Stop being so dramatic. You're making this harder than it has to be." I stayed locked in the bathroom for what felt like hours, sobbing until I was empty. Sister's smile. Around noon, there was a soft knock. "Caitlin? It's Emma. Can I come in?" My heart leapt, half hoping she would be horrified by what our parents had done. I unlocked the door. She stepped in. Her eyes widened. "Oh my gosh," she whispered, hand rising to her mouth. But then something changed in her expression, something I wish I hadn't seen. Satisfaction. "What happened to your hair?" she asked, though her tone was far from surprised. "Ask Mom," I said bitterly. "She did it while I was sleeping." Emma looked away for a moment. "Guilty." "Well, that was a bit much," she said at last. "But maybe it's for the best. You always did get a lot of attention for your hair." I stared at her, realization settling into my bones. She had known. Maybe not exactly what would happen, but something. She'd known. "I'm not coming to your wedding," I said flatly. "Find another bridesmaid." She stiffened. The false sympathy vanished. "You absolutely are coming. If you don't, Mom and Dad will cut you off completely. No help with rent. No job referrals. Nothing. You'll be on your own." My throat tightened. They had co-signed my lease. They had connections in my field. They could ruin everything I'd worked for. "You're my sister," I whispered. "How could you let them do this to me?" "It's just hair," she said with a shrug. "Stop being so dramatic. The wedding's tomorrow. You'll be there. Exactly how Mom planned. Stripped of everything." When she left, I scoured the bathroom for something, anything to hide my head. A scarf, a cap, even a headband. But when I stepped into the room hours later, my suitcase had been ransacked. Every accessory was gone. At dinner, which I was forced to attend despite my tear-stained face, my mother announced that she had booked an emergency appointment with the wedding stylist. "She thinks she can clean it up into a chic pixie cut," she said, as if this were just a normal hair makeover. My father didn't even glance at me. Emma wore fake concern for the phone calls with relatives, but when no one was looking, her smirk returned. That night, lying in my childhood bed, I didn't cry. I stared at the ceiling, gripped by a quiet fury I had never known before. I had spent years making myself smaller to accommodate Emma's insecurities. I had played the role of peacekeeper, scapegoat, invisible sibling. I had believed that someday my loyalty would be repaid with love. But this was something I could never forget. And I knew in my heart I would never forgive it. As my fingers touched the broken ends of my hair, one final thought burned itself into my soul. This ends now. The breaking point. Something hardened inside me that night. The version of me who had always smiled politely, kept the peace, and made excuses for others' cruelty, she died quietly between the cuts of the scissors and the sting of betrayal. In her place stood someone who finally understood a painful but liberating truth. Some betrayals should not be forgiven. The morning of the wedding. At 6 a.m., a cheerful knock echoed on my door. "Up and at 'em," my mother chirped from the hallway. "We've got a bride to prepare." As if the horror of the night before hadn't happened. The hairstylist, Marina, arrived an hour later. When she stepped into my room and caught sight of me, she gasped audibly. "What happened?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief and concern. "Family haircut emergency," my mother interrupted smoothly, before I could utter a word. "Caitlin had a little run-in with some gum and tried to fix it herself. Teenage impulsiveness, you know. We just need you to work your magic." I said nothing. Marina gave me a tentative look, her hands hesitating before touching my hair. Then, with gentle care, she tried to shape what remained of it into something salvageable. More hair fell to the floor. Each snip felt like another piece of me being buried. In the end, she created a very short pixie cut, delicate but severe. It exposed my ears, the back of my neck, every contour of my face. I felt raw, vulnerable, stripped. When my mother stepped out to check on Emma, Marina leaned closer and whispered, "I'm so sorry." I did the best I could. "It's not your fault," I said quietly, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "But could you do me a favor? If anyone asks, please tell the truth. I didn't do this to myself." She gave a small nod. Not much, but it meant the world. A shadow at the wedding. The bridesmaid dress was the final insult. A size too big, the lavender gown hung off my body like a forgotten curtain. I was already diminished by the haircut. Now I looked like a child playing dress-up in her mother's clothes. When the makeup artist tried to apply some glamour to compensate, my mother stepped in yet again. No, she said with a forced smile. Much more natural for Caitlin. Just a bit of powder. Maybe some lip balm. We don't want to overdo it. I barely recognized myself in the mirror. I looked like a faded photograph of who I used to be. By the time we arrived at the church, I had become a pale ghost of myself. The other bridesmaids stared in stunned silence. "What happened to your hair?" Brianna, Emma's college roommate, blurted out. Before I could speak, Emma swooped in, radiant in her designer wedding dress. Poor Caitlin had a bit of a meltdown last night. She stage whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. She cutted herself. "Stress, I think. Please don't bring it up. We're all trying to be supportive." She looked at me then. An expression carefully crafted to look compassionate, but her eyes betrayed something colder. A dare. A warning. And with our parents hovering nearby, I said nothing. The humiliation burned hotter than anything I'd ever felt. A ceremony in chains. The wedding ceremony itself was a blur. I floated down the aisle like a wind-up doll, my bouquet clutched in stiff fingers. I stood beside the other bridesmaids, my skin prickling under the weight of stares and whispers. Everyone in that church had known me since childhood. They remembered the girl with the golden hair and bright eyes. The girl who now looked like a husk of someone they once admired. It wasn't until the photo session that I truly hit rock bottom. The photographer, a friend of Jackson's family, kept trying to tuck me into corners, behind others, out of view. "Maybe Caitlin could sit for this one," he offered gently, with the others standing behind. My mother chimed in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Actually, let's do a few without Caitlin, just to have options." I stood off to the side, watching as flash after flash captured a family I no longer recognized myself in. Emma glowed in every frame. She looked freer, lighter, more confident, especially when I wasn't beside her. Whispers and lies. At the reception, the stories started swirling. My mother leaned close to my great-aunt. Poor thing. Had some kind of emotional episode. We're very concerned about her mental health. My father, in hushed tones to a business associate, murmured, "She's always been the dramatic one. Can't handle it when the attention's not on her." Even Emma, amid hugs and congratulations, managed to work me into her version of events. "Yes, it's been a tough week. My sister's struggling a bit, but we're doing our best to support her through it." I sat alone at the farthest table from the wedding party, exiled in plain sight. And then, Mark, the groom's brother and best man, pulled out the chair beside me. "You didn't do this to yourself, did you?" he asked softly. His words, so simple, so kind, almost broke me. I shook my head. "I didn't think so," he said gently. "For what it's worth, you still look beautiful. Different, yes, but still beautiful." His kindness stung more than the cruelty. I excused myself before the tears could start again. A toast to the truth. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection, really stared. The girl who used to be soft and hopeful was gone. But in her place, there was something stronger. Something that no scissors, no dress, no public humiliation could touch. When I returned, my father was giving his toast. "Emma has always been our shining star," he said, raising his glass. "The daughter who made us proud with her intelligence, her determination, and her good judgment." Polite applause followed. "Some children," he continued, glancing toward me, "seek attention through their appearance or dramatic antics. But Emma has true substance. Jackson, you've chosen a woman of worth, not just beauty, which fades or can be taken away." There was an awkward ripple of laughter. Most didn't catch the cruelty, but I did. So did Mark. His eyes flicked toward me with silent outrage. But I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I stood tall. Because in that moment, a truth as clear as sunlight dawned on me. This family will never change. The roles had been carved in stone. Emma, the star. Me, the scapegoat. My parents would never see me, only who they needed me to be so Emma could shine. The ending and the beginning. As my father's voice faded, I made a decision. Not out of anger. Not even revenge. But clarity. I owed these people nothing, not my silence, not my presence, and certainly not my forgiveness. I would leave this place. I would reclaim my life. Not in some dramatic outburst, but with quiet strength. The kind that doesn't ask for recognition, but never bends again. That night, as the music played and champagne flowed, I stepped out into the evening air. I walked away from the banquet hall, the laughter, the legacy of cruelty. I didn't look back. Because for the first time in my life, I was no longer playing a part in someone else's story. I was beginning my own. Consequences. Something shifted deep within me. Not the kind of change that makes you cry, it was quieter than that. Colder. Clearer. It was the kind of transformation that settles into your bones and rewrites everything you thought you knew. That night, I understood that my continued submission to their cruelty had only taught them they could get away with it. But not anymore. They deserved consequences. Real, lasting ones. Ones that couldn't be swept away with fake concern, hollow apologies, or carefully crafted lies. As I watched Emma and Jackson laughing while cutting their wedding cake, surrounded by applause and admiration, a plan began to take shape. They believed they'd silenced me, cut me down, stripped me of pride and voice. What they didn't realize was that they had created someone who no longer feared losing them. Because I already had. The most liberating part was this. I no longer cared about saving a place for myself in this family. Years of bending, apologizing, and overcompensating had yielded nothing but hurt. That delusion was cut away the moment they hacked at my hair. And now? I was watching everything with new eyes, searching for opportunity, not licking wounds. An unexpected ally. I found Mark again during the dancing, standing near the edge of the crowd. "How are you holding up?" he asked, voice warm with genuine concern. "Actually," I said, taking a breath, "I could use your help." He looked surprised, but didn't hesitate. "What do you need?" "My parents took my phone and keys. I need to run a quick errand. Could you drive me somewhere?" His brow furrowed. "They took your phone? That's disturbing." "You have no idea," I replied. He nodded. "I can get away for about 30 minutes without anyone noticing. Will that be enough?" "Perfect." During the father-daughter dance, a performance I had been purposefully excluded from, we slipped out quietly and made our way to his car. He drove me to a nearby 24-hour pharmacy. I grabbed what I needed, a sewing kit, a bottle of harmless, but highly irritating, itching solution, and a few other supplies. Back in the car, Mark glanced at the bag in my hands. "Should I ask what this is for?" I smiled faintly. "Probably better if you don't. But I promise no one will be hurt." He paused, then nodded. "Whatever happened with your hair, it wasn't an accident, was it?" I looked out the window. "No. My mother cut it while I slept. She wanted to make sure I didn't look prettier than Emma at the wedding." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. That's unbelievable." "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said quietly. It finally opened my eyes. Back at the reception, Mark helped me slip back in unnoticed. As we parted ways, he pressed a business card into my hand. "If you ever need someone to talk to, a real friend, call me. And Caitlin." He met my eyes. "Whatever you're planning, make it count." A quiet rebellion. Re-energized by Mark's kindness, I stepped into the next part of my plan. During the bouquet toss, an event I was conveniently excluded from, I approached Sarah, the wedding coordinator. "Hey," I said with a friendly smile. Emma asked me to sneak into the bridal suite to leave a little surprise for Jackson. Romantic gesture and all. Sarah beamed. "That's so sweet. I love that idea." She also asked me not to tell anyone. "You know how Emma wants the credit for all the thoughtful things." Sarah laughed knowingly. "I totally get it." She handed me her master key. Just bring it back in 20 minutes and we'll pretend this never happened. The bridal suite. Inside the suite, I worked methodically. First, I found Emma's special wedding night outfit laid neatly on the bed. I applied the clear, odorless solution to the inside lining, harmless, but once activated by body heat, deeply uncomfortable. Then I turned to their honeymoon luggage. I selected a few key items: swimsuits, undergarments, and a couple of Jackson's button-down shirts. Treated them the same way. I found their travel folder, first-class tickets to Bali, honeymoon itinerary, luxury reservations. I photographed everything, planning to recreate lookalike tickets with a 13-hour delay printed on them. Just enough to make them miss their flight, but not enough to realize why until it was too late. In her toiletry bag, I swapped her waterproof mascara with a non-waterproof version of the same brand. With Bali's heat and humidity, every honeymoon photo would capture black streaks running down her face. Finally, I discreetly placed a tiny wireless camera near the corner of the room, not aimed at anything too private, just enough to catch the moment things started to go wrong. Exactly 19 minutes later, I returned the key to Sarah, who winked at me. Hope he loves it. Oh, I'm sure he will, I said with a smile. Digital leverage. The second phase required digital access. Fortunately, Emma had always been careless with passwords, childhood pet names, birth dates, the usual. During a trip to the bathroom, I borrowed a bridesmaid's phone to check the time and quickly accessed Emma's cloud backup using one of her typical variations. Inside, I found all the day's professional wedding photos already uploaded. I downloaded a selection of them, especially the ones that flattered Emma most. They would come in handy. I also took note of her email login and social media credentials. Phase 3 would begin after I left the reception. I had everything I needed. A calm smile. By the time the party began to wind down, my work was complete. Each piece of the plan was set to unfold naturally over the next few days, none of it traceable, none of it violent. Just poetic. As Emma and Jackson prepared to leave, showered in petals, glowing with joy, I stood quietly near the exit. My calm smile returned. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was closure. A soft, bittersweet acknowledgement that I was done trying to earn love from people who didn't know how to give it.